But again, I wanted to reintroduce you to the program of, well, Realize to Actualize. Reintroduce myself to you. My name is Christoph. I'm from Germany originally. I've been living in San Francisco since 2004. Before that, I lived in Kansas for 12 years. A marriage that actually brought me to America. I met somebody in Germany, and 2 months after I met her, only 2 months, emphasize that again. A lot of things happened during my mid-20s. I was 24 when I left Germany. 2 months after I met her in Germany, I moved to Kansas. And 2 months later, I got married to her. And I stayed married to her for 12 years. We had 3 children. And it was, well, a very life-changing, dramatic experience. I learned a lot. I was confronted with a lot during that time. And I began studying about personal development in the mid-90s. Which really was a matter of facing myself and becoming aware of my own patterns, of how I kept on complaining about the same thing over and over, which was her. And yes, she was analyzed with bipolar towards the end of our marriage, and she was extremely irritating at times and very out of control and irrational and obnoxious and difficult to deal with. But still, because I was focusing in on that, that's all I saw. I was just stirring the fire. And so out of this I learned it's really a matter of coming to terms with what ultimately cannot change, cannot be changed. Ultimately to find that you cannot change people. That is the main awareness. And you're then being changed basically through the experience in real relationships where people relate to one another. Which sadly didn't take place during my marriage. And as again, after 2 months I met her in Germany, I moved to America. There was no really relationship anymore. I was married to her. She took me for granted. I was her husband, she said. I was following her around and then got upset when she was acting in very weird ways. You know? And so the story goes. Again, eventually I learned. When I began studying about personal development in the mid-90s and really immersed myself into the subject, listening to books on tape, which the work I was doing at the time, we could use headphones, and so I was checking out books on tape from the library, and I came across personal development. And Leo Buscaglia, and Deepak Chopra, and Anthony Robbins, and Dr. Wayne Dyer, so many others. Napoleon Hill, you know, the old-timers. Earl Nightingale. I listened to dozens of tapes there, and I began using a voice recorder shortly later. You know, again, in the mid-90s we're talking about. To basically repeat those ideas, which completely made sense to me. But as I began listening to those recordings, I eventually heard my own patterns. How I kept on complaining about the same thing over and over and over. And so, yeah, I realized these things, I learned about these things, but I didn't live it. Because I was focused on changing the person I was married to, because she was just very, very, again, difficult for me to deal with, and I needed her to be different. And I didn't know at the time how to accept her. Which was the reason for why we were arguing all the time, and many times physical altercations, and in the middle my children were in the middle of that, and they saw all of that, and it's been very, very dramatic, very difficult. A lot of pain there still, and I'm just in the process now to learning to heal that pain. That's basically what Realize to Actualize is all about, what I'm about. I call myself a practicing philosopher and teacher of learning, coming to find that we all are that. We all teach what we have learned, and we all practice our own philosophy. And we're all separate basically through our subjective realities that we all live in, the way we think, the way we feel, the way we experience life, out of which we create our own reality with our own routine and the people in our life and the work we do and experiences at school and at home and all of that. We create out of that, out of how we experience where we are. And that's basically behind that concept, Realize to Actualize, experience to create or learn to work. Like my dad always said in Germany, you know, von nichts kommt nichts. Like from nothing comes nothing. And so we're just working on that, you know, to create something out of nothing. Which is really, that's how we actually, the materialization process begins. It just begins with a thought. Again, this new revolution, there's no need to fight against. You focus even on what you don't want and it irritates you, you give it power. And especially then if you try to fight against it, you give it power. This is about reclaiming power. You know, and even though we have become disempowered, you know, we cannot get the power back, and it's not really a matter of fighting against those who have taken those power from us. But realizing that we're all part of that consciousness, which has created those in power, and those, the masses, who are then programmed to submit themselves to the system. And there always was a system, and throughout human history there always was injustice. and nothing really has changed. Then it's basically history repeating itself. What I'm presenting here with Realize to Actualize means these videos is new in that it concerns itself only with the inner world and how out of the inner world you create, and depending on what you focus on, what you think about. And through this, your actions, you create your own reality. And that's where your power lies. And that's where the new revolution of this world begins, with an evolution from within.